Everyone's Pokemon team is different. Unless you're playing Diamond and Pearl, then we pretty much all have the same team. But aside from that, it's pretty diverse. However, no matter who you have on your team, every single Pokemon that you have can fall under a specific category. So I thought it would be fun to go over all of those archetypes. I know the title maybe says stereotypes, and that's mostly because I'm not confident enough in our education system to believe that most people know what an archetype is. So, stereotype it is, for now. I think the best place to start is the head of the operation, the leader, or let's be real, your starter Pokemon. These Pokemon are more often than not also your starter, and that's mostly because pretty much everyone keeps their starter Pokemon with them throughout their journey. Unless you're one of those people who immediately put them in the box. What's wrong with you? Starters are pretty much guaranteed to be an ace. It doesn't matter who your opponent sends out. Even if you're at a type disadvantage, you know that they can still pull through. Plus, your starter has been there since the beginning of your journey. It's only natural that they take up most of the spotlight. And hey, even if you're someone who doesn't use their starter, there's still a ton of Pokemon that could fit this category. My leaders throughout my journey have been Charizard, Blaziken, Greninja, Decidueye, Cinderace, Infernape, Skeledirge, and Samurott. Without them on my team, the journey would have been way less of a cakewalk. However, for the few times they did fall, there's always, of course, All Reliable. Now, inevitably, your leader is gonna faint. What the hell do you do? Can't exactly back out now, so you need to have your second in command ready to take action, aka All Reliable. This Pokemon always finishes what your leader started, and hell, at times, maybe it just takes the helm completely and wipes the floor all on its own. Point is, if you're ever in trouble, you always have this Pokemon to have your back. A Pokemon that would probably fit this role for me is probably my Grimmsnarl from Pokemon Sword. I had no idea how good Grimmsnarl would be, and if I'm being honest, I only put it on the team on a whim, but boy am I glad I caught this thing. I forgot the nickname I gave it, but let's not get into the specifics. He's still out there, somewhere. Mimikyu was amazing in my Pokemon Sun run. Sunrun. This thing already looked pretty cool, so it was going on the team no matter what, but Disguise is such a clutch ability. That's a free turn no matter what. Thank you, Mimikyu, we all say in unison. I really thought my Ceruledge would be one, and it sorta was, but it was in constant competition with my Skeledirge, also because they were the exact same type. So I would just kind of choose out random which one to send out. But Tinkaton straight up stole the show sometimes. Gigaton Hammer is no joke. It was just one-shotting things left and right. Nothing was safe. Not even you. Unless you subscribe. Of course. I love this thing. Give me a plush of it, please. My Luxray from Diamond consistently held its own in every battle. There was times I would have just lost without it, so shout out to Luxray. You're a real one. And he looks cool, but not all Pokemon have that blessing. The Pokemon that looks cool or cute, but low-key kinda sucks. The Looks Maxer? If you're unfamiliar with what Looks Maxing is, good. Keep it that way. I couldn't really come up with a catchy name for this one, but it's pretty self-explanatory. Sometimes you just like how a Pokemon looks, and there's nothing wrong with that. Maybe you just think it's really cute or really cool. But sometimes, looks are all it has going for it, because when it comes down to it, that Pokemon just straight up sucks. I have a ton of respect for people who keep them despite that though. I feel like using Pokemon because you like them is way better than just using them because they're good. From my countless journeys, Vikavolt, Vikavolt, I don't know how to say it anymore. People always correct. Just one of them is the Pokemon I immediately think of. This thing looks sick. I love it. But guess what? I don't use it a lot because it's slower than a literal worm. What? I hate this. It got to a point where I wasn't even sure if I wanted this thing on my team anymore, but I kept it. Begrudgingly. We came too far, okay? We can't just take him back now. I thought Wishy-Washy would be another Magikarp situation where it starts off as this weak, pathetic creature and turns into a behemoth. But turns out it stays as this weak, pathetic creature. There just happens to be more of them. I've never been more disappointed in my life. Its school form is just one hit away from being gone. Same thing with Golisopod. Wimpod's whole thing is being a wimp, so I thought once it evolved, it would grow a pair and not be so wimpy writing in its diary. But no, it's still scared. If not more, because it now has the ability to straight up leave mid-battle. Come back! This has screwed me over so many times, which again is a shame because it looks so cool. Notice how I just mentioned 3 Pokemon from Alola? Yeah, my Pokemon Sun team was dysfunctional. We should not have won that championship. Kinda like Ash. I thought Corviknight had such a cool design, but alas, it kinda sucked in the end. I thought it would end up being another Staraptor, but it just ended up being tanky and slow, which I guess makes sense, but still. Colossal looks cool, but just splashing a bit of water on it is enough to kill it, so it never really lasted long. Daxbun is the only Pokemon that I've used and kept, not because it was cool, but because it was cute. Look at it. It's a loaf dog. What more could you ask for? Probably a dog with a sword. Boy, do I have a game for you. I used Daxbun despite not needing another fairy type on the team. Was it worth it? I don't know, but he was there. Archeops is also here mostly because of its ability to fetus. Not the fetus, the fetus. I don't know why they decided to curse this poor creature. It's already struggling to fly. It doesn't need to struggle in battle as well. In their defense though, I think having a bunch of flawed creatures on your team can make for the most fun playthroughs ever. Instead of having a bunch of overpowered critters steamroll everything, it's more fun to come out of every battle struggling and wondering how you even won. So in the end, I'm pretty happy I kept all of these creatures despite them not being the best. The Pokemon that has potential or is a diamond in the rough. Not every Pokemon can just hit the ground running. I mean, just look at Geodude. It doesn't even have legs. These Pokemon suck. There's no way around it. But sometimes all they need is just a little push to unlock their true potential. The most infamous example of this is Magikarp. It goes from one of the most useless Pokemon ever to a pretty formidable powerhouse. As Gaijo would say, you were a real diamond in the rough, kid. Yes, he said that, I'm not joking, here's proof. Noibat is another one of these. I didn't really have much faith in it at first, but my brother insisted that it was super strong, and he was right. This thing blasted through everything in its path once it finally evolved. Same thing with Gumi. I feel like this just holds true with a lot of Dragon-type Pokemon. There's a pretty decent chance you've had a Pokemon like this on your team. I think Beldum can qualify too, because oh my god, it takes forever for it to finally evolve into Metagross. Level 45 is insane, and it doesn't help that it gains XP very slowly. Up until then, don't expect much from it. It's as good as a pet rock, which, yeah, it looks like one too, but it more than carries its weight after all of its training. Ryulu requires friendship to evolve, which can be a bit of a pain. This truly is the embodiment of you're a real diamond in the rough, kid. You take in this little guy, you train him, and he becomes the Goku of the Pokemon world. Lucario solo is pretty much anything. It's the best. Togepi goes from this whiny little egg baby to this joyful plain angel egg thing. I don't really know what it is, but it's pretty strong. Tynamo especially belongs here because evolving at level 39 for only your second stage evolution is insane. You can also throw a little baby Billip in here too. He starts off as a weak ball but becomes a strong ball. How inspirational. The Fumbler, or the blind one. Sometimes you use a Pokemon move and it just misses, and that's okay. It happens. But when they start to miss one too many times, I start to question what they're even doing on the team. If you're ever in a tough situation, never count on this Pokemon. They're gonna fuck it up. This could honestly be any Pokemon. It's mostly all up to luck and how you play the game, and also the types of moves your Pokemon knows. But I'm sure we all have at least one Pokemon in mind at this very moment. Maybe it missed an attack in a very crucial battle and you lost because of it. Maybe it ended up critting and you killed a Pokemon you wanted to catch. Bonus points if it was shiny. Don't worry guys, I know your pain. Rock type moves notoriously have a really low accuracy. So my Lycanroc, being a rock type, had a ton of rock type moves, which I think is reasonable, you know? I don't think I'm at fault for that. But apparently it was also blind because I swear he missed like half of them. Buddy, the target is right in front of you. He thinks he's Rapide from Tales of Vesperia, but even then, Rapide is missing an eye and still hitting his shots. Start wearing glasses or something, please. Get a prescription. This is sort of a vague memory, but I think my Dreadnought might have done something like this. It's been a while, but I'm on to you, Dreadnought. However, something I can never forget is when my Duraludon missed Draco Meteor 3 times in a row. 3! And guess who ended up losing the battle? That's right, I did. Thanks to Duraludon. Fucking piece of shit. The new kid on the block. Whenever you catch a new Pokemon, it's gonna take a while for them to get up to speed with everyone else and find their purpose on the team. So they're just gonna have to sit in your party with an EXP share for a bit, when those were a thing anyway. Now they just sort of sit there and do nothing. I don't know, maybe twiddle their thumbs a little and get stronger because of it. They're gonna constantly get new moves, and you'll start to get a feel for what they bring to the team. However, sometimes they don't make the team, and instead of the new kid on the block, they're on the chopping block, and you don't want to be there. Trust me. It's hard to pick specific examples since every Pokemon on the team was at one point the new kid on the block. It's like an initiation. Not a cult one though. I swear it's not a cult. The Bench Warmer. Up until the point where they actually get strong, the Bench Warmer's biggest play in every battle is just being a sacrifice so you can have a turn to revive your other more useful Pokemon. You're usually just trying to get them some yummy XP, but they aren't strong enough to do it on their own. It's also highly likely that they're gonna consume a lot of your rare candies, so just be prepared for that. I swear he just downed like a whole shelf. There's also the possibility that you just completely forgot about their existence. Whatever the reason is, this Pokemon is better left out of combat. Abra is a pretty good example of this. The only move it can learn by leveling up is Teleport, and that's it. That's all it can do, unless you have a TM for it or something. But for a good part of the journey, Abra is just gonna keep the bench nice and warm for everyone else, and then inevitably gets sent out for the greater good. Think of it as the Chaozu of the team, except its sacrifice isn't in vain. You can also put Metapod and Kakuna on here since they don't really have any other move besides Harden. I guess they could have Tackle if you evolve them from a Caterpie, but I don't know if that applies to wild ones. Moral of the story, keep that bench warm. A literal god. This doesn't really apply to me since I refuse to have any legendaries, or hell, even any mythicals. But eventually, in a Pokemon game, you get to a point where you're given the option to catch the box legendary, and some people like to add them to their team, which good on them. They're free to do whatever they want. I don't really care, it doesn't affect me. But then you just have, oh, that's my Decidueye, that's my Lurantis, that's Sun Jesus, and this is Rockruff. He's just a little guy. I think the only, and I mean only time I've ever used a legendary on my team was when you got Solgaleo or Lunala in Pokemon Sun and Moon, just because Nebby played such a big part in that game. It just felt wrong not using it. Even then though, I think I used it sparingly. The foreign exchange Pokemon. Maybe you received it from the GTS, when that was still a thing. A day doesn't pass where I don't think about it. Or maybe you just had it traded to you by a friend. You could have also gotten it from a surprise trade, and it turns out it's from Chicago. Why is its held item in M19? There's also the possibility that you just imported them in from Pokemon Home. Who really knows? The point is, it's not a Pokemon from your game. I think I'm just gonna start asking people to trade me a random Pokemon of their choosing for me to use on my team, because that just sounds like fun. Unless they fuck me over with a Squirtle or something, then it's not so fun. I think the only time I really traded to have a Pokemon on my main team is whenever it's like a version exclusive, or maybe if it's like a, I don't know, challenge run where you only use evolutions. I don't think I've ever done one though. I did trade a lot on the GTS back during Generation 5, but I didn't use them to beat the game, so I don't know if it exactly counts. That is the origin of my Zorua though, but that's a story for another day. Also, I think I already told it, so I don't want to tell it again. What I think is cool is that Pokemon from a different game actually gain XP faster than normal. I don't know if it's to try and prove a point to its original trainer, but it's cool regardless. The cannon fodder, or punching bag. This is the bottom of the barrel of your team. If all your other Pokemon that you actually use faint, you're left with this one. And you might as well pack it up because you know damn well you're not winning this fight. This slot pretty much applies to any Pokemon that I catch for the sole purpose of completing the Pokedex, and I just forget to remove them from my party. The only reason I remember they're there is when I happen to faint and I just see an entire army of Route 1 Pokemon ready to avenge my fallen comrade. They've never won a fight. Not even once. The Forgotten. This goes out to all the Pokemon who have gotten replaced by better members on their team. You could also just throw in any gift Pokemon or Pokemon caught solely for the Pokedex. They're just sitting there rotting in the PC for all eternity. They don't make it all the way to the Elite Four and get their name up in the Hall of Fame. They're nothing more than a stepping stool to you, you heartless bastard. Anyways, a list of Pokemon I use temporarily include, but are not limited to, Yamper, Wooloo, Orbeetle, Weevil, Wishiwashi, Alolan Raticate, Crabrawler, Alolan Ninetales, Alolan Executor, Roserade, Gligar, Breloom, Sableye, Absol, and I don't know, probably countless more. I haven't really been keeping track. If you're not in first, you're in last! Kidding. Mostly. I'll probably end up using these Pokemon in another playthrough. I just have this problem where there's too many Pokemon that I like and want to use, but they end up overlapping types with members already on the team, or I just don't have any room for them. Whatever the problem is, they all share the same fates. The Day 1 OG. We all have that Pokemon we caught at the very start of our journey who has stuck around through thick and thin, but the longer they stay, the harder it is to switch them out for someone else, even if they're statistically better in every way. That Pokemon has been there with you since day one. Even if they suck, the sentimental value is what's keeping them secured on your team. In earlier Pokemon games, this can pretty much apply to every early route bird Pokemon, since if you wanted to use the HM Fly, you needed a flying type, so might as well secure that slot early on and not have to worry about it later. What I really like about this slot is that it tempts you to keep bad Pokemon on your team. Clodsire isn't exactly the greatest in battle, at least from what I remember, but I still kept it on my Pokemon Violet team for a while. I don't know if it made it to the Elite Four with me since it was open world and I wanted to constantly switch my team throughout my journey and have Pokemon ready for any situation, but he did play a big part. My Ludicolo from Pokemon Alpha Sapphire really shouldn't have stayed on my team for the whole playthrough, but I just couldn't bring myself to bench him. There was a ton of Pokemon that I wanted to replace Toucannon with, but he was there since day one. I couldn't just get rid of him, so he made it all the way to the Elite Four, even if he wasn't exactly a star player. The unexpected MVPs, aka the underdogs. Sometimes you catch a Pokemon and don't expect much from it, but then it pulls through. Time and time again. They just might have to stay on the team permanently. I had absolutely zero expectations for Alolan Muck, which only made how good it was that much impressive. I really wanted it to stay on the team, but I think I ended up switching it out for Mimikyu. But if I ever replay Sun and Moon, this thing is getting a guaranteed slot. Garganacl was also a Pokemon that I had no idea would be as great as it was. Salt Cure was such a useful move in my playthrough, and it ended up being the reason I won the championship. I challenged it under level on purpose to make the fight harder, but still. Time Pull is is really ugly, and it stays that way pretty much for its whole evolution line. But Seismitoad is an incredible Pokemon. Water Ground is already a phenomenal typing, but goddamn is this thing good. Aurorus was also a great Pokemon. I used one on my Y playthrough, but I still need to finish it because I kind of get lazy when I replay Pokemon games. But I enjoyed using one. Let me know what your teams are and what archetypes they fit, and also add on some new ones. You guys can get pretty creative. And go watch this video about starter Pokemon not existing anymore if you haven't. Anyways, like the video, comment, follow my socials. Why do so many Pokemon wallpapers suck? God damn! Bye bye, people.